Now we have established the fact what kind of programming language Python is, whether it is interpreted or compiled. So we'll go ahead and start learning Python. So the first thing that I want to talk about is class and objects. Again, this is a very high level discussion on class and objects. We'll talk about class and objects later on again. But it is important to tell you these concepts because everything in Python is an object. So what is a class? Class basically is a template or blueprint to create objects. If I have to tell you in AWS terms or Google GCP terms, etc. So in AWS there's something called CloudFormation template. And in GCP we have Cloud Deployment Manager. So what are these? You create a template of provisioning the cloud infrastructure. So you mentioned that, okay, I'm taking example of CloudFormation template. So let's say you want to create an environment and or an application. So what you do is you mention using the template that I want to create a VPC, then EC2 instance, then database, security groups, etc. So you create that in the CloudFormation template, and while executing, you ask the value from the users, and the users provide the value, and the entire environment is deployed. So as you can see, it is similar to what I'm talking here, because you create a template or a blueprint in the beginning to create something multiple times. So you use or you create the template only once and you use the template multiple times. Now all these different times will pass different value to the template. So that's how you can think of the CloudFormation template as the class, and executing it with different values are called objects. So in class, you create a template using programming language, and from this class, you create object by providing values to the class. So let's say this is the class that we have. The name of the class is user underscore profile. And what I'm saying is that the class would have name, email, and location. This is the template because the user profile would have name, email, and a location. Then we create object from it. So as you can see, this particular class does not have any value of name or email or location. So these are blank because this is a template. Now while then we create an object using this particular template, then the object would be created. Let's say the name of the profile is u underscore dev. It will use this particular class user underscore profile, but it will pass value this time. Let's say name is Danny, email is dny@gmail.com, and location is USA. So u underscore dev has become an object of the class user profile because u underscore dev used this particular template to create itself by passing the value in name, email, and location. So maybe in RAM it would be stored something like this, Danny followed by the email followed by the location. So class does not have any presence in memory. So while executing, only object, the physical presence are only available for the objects because objects are created in memory. So that's what class and object is. Now the question is, why am I talking about class and object in the beginning of Python basics? Because in Python everything is an object. So we'll see that when we discuss data types are also objects. Everything is an object in Python. So that's why you should know what a class is and what an object is. Class is the template or blueprint that you create in the program, and object is the physical presence of that template with different values. So I can create one more object, let's say u underscore dba, name might be Frank, email might be something, and location might be, let's say, India. So I can create multiple objects from the same class. So class does not have any physical presence. Object describes the physical presence of class by passing different variables. So that's why we can have different objects with the same class. An object would be present in memory. So now let us go ahead and talk about basic Python concepts. The first one is data types. So there are various data types. What is data type? It is used to tell the programming language what kind of value you are storing. Whether you want to store number like something like this 12345 or 200.50, or you want to store strings like teen ayam or football, etc. And if it is string, it has to be either in single quotes or double quotes. Then there is list also. This is the third data type, which is an unordered array of mixed data types with duplicates, and elements can be modified in the list. We'll talk about individual data types in the coming videos, but this is how a list is. So you can think of list as an array, and these individual values are called elements. So this is the first element, which is of type string. The second element is of type number or numeric. The third element is again another array with two elements in it. One is string and the other one is number. The fourth element is again a number or a decimal number. And then you can have other elements also. So this is what a list is. It is an array of different elements, and there can be duplicate, meaning that I can have 3 ayam again here. So duplicates are allowed. Tuple is same as list, but it cannot be modified. So for example, tuple is something like this. Same value I am putting, but the difference is that in list, you can, let's say, modify this particular value. You can change 3 ayam to something else, or you can change 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to something else within the list itself. But in tuple, that is not possible. We cannot modify the individual values of tuple. Although we can modify the array elements inside of a tuple, which we'll talk about later on. But by default, these elements cannot be modified in tuple. Then you have dictionary, which is basically used to store key value elements or key value pairs. It's something like this. So it starts with curly braces and ends with curly braces. Name is the key and its corresponding value is Hari. Title is the key, its corresponding value is data engineer. Date of joining is 31st December 2024. So this is what a dictionary is, and we keep key value pairs in dictionary. And if you are familiar with JSON, you would see that there is a lot of commonality between JSON and dictionary. In fact, if we have files with JSON values, we map those JSON values in dictionary data type only in Python. And then finally we have set, which is similar to list but without duplicates. We cannot have duplicates in set. Now, as I told you in the beginning while discussing classes and objects, that all variables are objects in Python. First of all, you do not have to define data types of any variable. Why that is not needed? Because data types are inferred based on the value that is stored in the variable. So if we have a variable, let's say a, and we are storing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Python would know that it's a integer data type. And if we store, let's say in quotes we mention teen ayam, then Python would know that it's a string data type. We can find the data type using the type function. So this is a function. We have not talked about function yet, but this is how we can use functions in Python. Now, what does it mean? Let's say we have this class user profile and we have these, this is the template. We have name, email, location. Along with it, maybe you have a code block also, meaning that this code block is doing some calculation. Now, when you create an object, let's say name of the object is 3 ayam, we can not only use the variables like name, email, location, we can also use the code block. Now, let's say the code block is get db info. This is a portion of code which gets the information about a particular database. Now, if you create an object from this particular class, user profile, then I can use this code block using the name getDB info also. Again, I'll talk about it in details when I discuss classes and objects. But as of now, what I'm trying to say here is that whatever is there in the class, we can use all of them in the object, not only the variables, the code blocks also. So now let's say we have a variable named dbName, and the dbName is in quotes MySQL DB. So it will be a string data type. So it's an object dbName from class string. So we have created the object and the name of the object is dbName and the value is MySQL DB. it has been created from class string. Similarly, let's say we have db port which is equal to 3306. So db port is an object created from class integer with values 3306. So let me show you that, and I'll be using the CLI. Let me go to CLI Python 3, and here let me mention the DB name as teenayam underscore DB, and let's say DB port as 3306. So what I have done here is that I have assigned this particular value in quotes to the database name. This is string, and then I have assigned this value to the variable db port. Now if you see that I did not have to mention that db name would store string values, or db port would store integer value, and we can change it in runtime also. Next time I can put db name as, let's say, 333, which would become integer. But if I have to find the data type, if you have to know what is the data type of this particular variable, then you can mention this type, open bracket, close bracket, and put the value inside of this type, and it will show me the data type. So if you see, I'm trying to find out the data type of db name, and it is showing the data type as a class string, which means db name is an object of class string. Similarly, it would be for db port also. So db port is a class integer. That means it's an object of class integer. So that's how basically all the variables in Python are objects, or everything in Python are objects. Variable is the basic construct of any programming language. So variable by itself is an object in Python. Now let me show you one more data type. Let's say price, and I assign it as 1234.50. Now if I use the function like type and then price, it is from class float. So it is an object of class float. Now one more thing. So how am I getting the previous commands? I'm just pressing up arrow to get the previous commands, and I can press down arrow to get the next commands. So that's how this is one keyboard shortcut in the CLI. As you have seen that everything in Python is an object. Now with that particular understanding, let's go deeper into the data types.